Hi guys, so today I'm going to be doing sort of two book reviews in one. I've just finished this trilogy and I thought I would just combine both these books. It is Prodigy and Champion by Mary Lou. This is the second and third book in the Legend trilogy. And I really actually enjoyed this series. The first book I was a bit like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. I did do a review on that, so I will link it on the screen and down below. But I think the first book was probably the least favourite of mine. So I was pleasantly surprised with these two. I think I gave both of them 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I will start with Prodigy, and I'll try not to give any spoilers, and then I'll let you know when I'm moving on to Champion. So if you haven't read one of them, you know when to switch off. So in the end of Legend, we see Day and June escape the Republic, and they flee to go to Las Vegas to find the Patriots and to see if they can help with their effort, and to see if Day can find his brother Eden again and if they can help with that. So they end up going to Vegas and joining the Patriots, and then the Patriots, they're sort of the rebellion in this, and they want to try and assassinate the new elector, because the old elector dies and therefore his son becomes the new elector, and they want to kill him. Secrets and things that get put together, and Day and June not quite sure whether they want to stick with the Patriots, and whether they think the elector will actually be good for the Republic. In the first book, we find out that Day actually got a really high score in his trials, and from then the Republic decided to experiment on him, and they touched on that a little bit in the first book. And then in the second book, we find out after Day visits a doctor that, and they do a scan on his brain, that he's actually, when they experimented on him, they did something to his brain that they're not going to be able to fix, essentially, and that he's dying from it. And that's just devastating news to him. He finds out he's only got 2 months to live. So if you haven't read this book, I won't give away too much spoilers, and I think you might want to sort of X out this video now. But if you've read it, or you just don't care what sort of happens towards the end of the book, it's not really so much of a spoiler, it's just a fact of what happens. But Day tells June that things aren't going to work out between them. Obviously he knows he's dying, and he doesn't want June to fall in love with him and then him just leave her. June obviously doesn't know why he's saying all this, and is very heartbroken, and it was really hard to read at the end. I thought it was very courageous of Day to say that to her, because he is doing the right thing in a way, but as a viewer you just want them to be together forever, so it's quite sad in that sense. So that's Prodigy, and as soon as I finished that I was like, I need to read Champion right away. It definitely leaves you gripped. Also in this book we see June become one of the elector's like sidekicks, in a sense. It's like Prince Aleps or something. Basically has 3. And after a while he has to choose who his like main sidekick is, in a way, and who's gonna like shadow him through his time as being the elector. So I will now move on to Champion. One really cool thing about this edition, not only is it a signed copy, which is really cool, but because in each book you have Day, the chapters alternate between Day speaking and June speaking. In this book you have, so this is June, and it's like in a dark blue, and then Day is in like a red print. I just thought that was a really cool thing. At the start of the book we see Day is getting increasingly more headaches through whatever the Republic did to his brain. He's going for all these tests and things, trying to find out what the cure is and if they can operate on him. Obviously, because they helped Andon stop being killed by the Patriots and they helped to protect him, he's obviously rewarded him and June with new apartments and like knowing that they'll be looked after. So the main event that happens in this book is the colonies want and do start a war with the Republic. They believe that the Republic implemented one of their plagues into the colonies and just made it spread, and it's mutated. So that's sort of the catalyst for them starting the war on the Republic. So back in legend, we actually see Day and June go to the colonies, and June becomes ill, and they end up curing her, or what she believes like helping her when she gets into the colonies, and they think it's all fine. They don't really think much of it, and you don't really hear anything about that until towards the end of the book. But they think that because Eden, obviously Day's brother Eden, obviously had the plague, they think the cure to it is going to be in his blood. And I think if they can find the cure, they can get help from Antarctica, and they can back them up in this war and stop the war. So they're trying to convince Day to hand over his brother. Day is obviously very reluctant to it, and he talks to his brother about it, and his brother is actually pretty willing to help out, and that's quite courageous for a young boy to. He's been through so much and like so many tests already with the Republic that he's willing to put himself forward to help with the cure, even though he could potentially die from it. He hands his brother over, and they do all these tests on him, and in the meantime Tess gets the plague, so Day's mind is just all over the place because his brother's going for the test. He's trying to figure out what's going to happen with June, and Tess is obviously ill as well, and he doesn't know what's going to happen to the Republic. So in this period of time, you see the colonies slowly start to take control over the Republic. You start to think that the colonies may have actually won this, and that is quite a scary thought, because at the beginning you were thinking, like at the beginning of the trilogy, you were thinking the colonies seemed this great place, they should all go to the colonies, they should just make peace with each other. And by the end of the series, you're like, actually, the Republic just needed a new leader and they would be fine. The colonies are actually quite twisted in their own way. So meanwhile, while all these tests are happening on his brother, Day comes up with a plan that the Republic should do a fake surrender and trick the colonies into thinking that they're surrendering, and then when they least expect it, to just switch on them and try and gain back their power. And yeah, I will stop there if you haven't read the book, because I feel like I've blabbed on a lot and I don't want to ruin some of the things that happen towards the end. So if you're currently in the process of reading this trilogy, probably X out this video now, but I would highly recommend this series. It definitely gets better as it goes along, and I think you'll really enjoy this last book. If you have read it, or you're just curious to see what happens towards the end of the book, then keep watching. So obviously the tests come back that Eden is not the missing piece that they're looking for, and they find out that the plague mutated somewhere in the colonies. So the scientists find out that Eden isn't the missing piece they were looking for, and that since he got the plague it had mutated, and that was what was coming back into the Republic. And something clicks with June, that obviously she was ill when she was in the colonies and the colonies helped cure her, so she thinks obviously something's gone on there. And obviously something had, because they had manipulated the plague when it was inside her, and she, without knowing, brought it back into the Republic, and she is the missing piece that they're all looking for, and she holds the cure to help everyone. So June puts herself up for all these tests. They find the cure for it, and Tess ends up recovering. Meanwhile, while all this is happening, you think everything's going to be fine. The colonies still look like they're quite a bit in power. And then towards the end there is a scene. June runs up to the roof of the building she's in and finds Commander Jameson, and she's there shooting down Republic people and Republic soldiers, and she sees that she is aiming for Day. Day's trying to reach his brother. It's a very like exhilarating scene in the book, and in a short bubble, Day gets shot. Commander Jameson gets killed by being thrown off the cliff. It was a great scene, and then obviously you think Day's gonna die. You're like, everything's finally looking like it could be good. They found the cure. Day's brother Eden's gonna be alright. Tessa's gonna be alright. The Republic look like they're resolving their issues, and then Day looks like he's gonna die, which is really sad. And then he ends up being in a coma for about 5 months, because not only do they deal with his gunshot wounds, but they operate on his brain to see if they can try and fix part of the brain that was altered on. And one day June goes to the hospital and the doctor is like, Day's awake, and we're like, this is amazing. But then he's like, there's something else. The part of his brain that they helped fix affected his short-term memory. So he can remember like his family and Eden and a lot of like his past, so he can still remember Tess, but he can't remember who June is. That was like really heartbreaking. And June could go in there and try and like explain who she is, and he'd obviously be quite confused about it, but she makes the really brave decision to go in there and just say she's someone from the Republic. She doesn't really mention who she is or what their past has been, and she doesn't want to give him that heartbreak of having to deal with her as well again, and like he'll just remember Tess and maybe they'll get together, and then to that part, and you're like, really, the book ends really sad because you obviously wanted June and Day to get together, and it's such a heartbreaking thing and a brave thing that she had to do to sort of let him go and let him start fresh in a way and not have to remember the pain that they've gone through together, which was really sad. And then, so that's sort of where the book ends. Also at the end of the book, Eden and Day are offered to go and work and live in Antarctica. They see really great potential in them to obviously have good skills for their country. So they go there, and June is what we feel left on her own. It's a very sad moment. She's obviously lost all her family. She won't be getting to see Andon as much because he's chosen his sidekick, and he'll obviously have the country to run and recover. So she hasn't really got a lot of people around her. And that's sort of when the book ends, and it's very sad. But then, which I think saves the book ending, is they have a little chapter which is set 10 years on, which I always love when a book does that, because you always want to know what happens like later in the future. So you see June getting her new job and becoming quite successful in that. You see, it tells you that June and Andon did have a relationship for a brief period of time, but then they mutually decided to split. So you're like, oh, that's nice, she's got someone again, and then it's like they split, and it's like, oh gosh, you just want something good to happen for her. And then one day, because she's still friends with Tess, she invites her around to her place, and she's just walking down the street and she sees these two figures, and Tess had mentioned earlier in that day that Eden was back in the Republic to for a job interview, and so obviously she thinks that means Day's back as well, and like I said, she's just walking the street and she stumbles across them, and something obviously triggers in Day's mind, and he's like, do I know you? You seem familiar. And he still doesn't know why he finds her so familiar, but they sort of reintroduce themselves. They both know that they know Tess, so obviously he knows that they're mutual friends, and it was very heartwarming at the end because they would reintroduce themselves, and you can see them one day just filling in all those missing pieces and hopefully getting together and have a nice little happy ending. So overall, really enjoyed this trilogy. I hope this review's been somewhat good. I always find it hard to review trilogies because you don't want to give too much away for the next book or what's happened in the book, but I just have so much to recap about it. And I just really liked it. I thought it was a very good, especially I think Champion was my favourite out of them all. It was very well done. But if you're on Legend and you're thinking, I don't know if I like this, I recommend you stick through it at least to Prodigy because it does get better. So that is my little book review for you today, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys!